Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share something that's really personal. The reasons why I decided to quit my six-figure data scientist job in tech without another one lined up or in the market to look for another job. I made this announcement on Instagram a while ago. In the video, I talked about the main reason being that I didn't feel like I was really making a big impact on society or people around me through the work that I was doing. But I feel like a 30-second video doesn't really do justice to paint the entire picture and the emotional roller coaster that I've been on for a month leading up to the decision point. So I wanted to give you a bit more context. It was one of the hardest decisions that I've ever made so far in my career and probably one of the most important ones. I really hope that one day I'm able to look back to this moment and say, hey, I'm really proud of her for taking that step out of her comfort zone and making the jump, and it was one of the best decisions that she could have ever made in her entire career. Okay, let's talk about it. Before I quit my job, I was the perfect 20-something on paper, well, at least in my parents' eyes. In high school, I took a lot of AP classes, I got really good grades, I did basketball and tennis, and was involved in drama and did volunteer work with Big Brother and Big Sister so that I could put myself in a good position for a good university. And then once I was at the University of Toronto, starting my studies in geography and statistics, I went to a lot of networking events. Even as a freshman, it was very intimidating, but I think you should still do it, by the way. I did that so that I could get really awesome internship. I cold emailed my way through 7 internships while I was in school, and I did a lot of research as well with different professors, all in hopes of getting a good permanent full-time job after university. And that's what I did. I was able to get my full-time permanent data scientist position in tech. I was beyond excited. I felt like I got my dream job when I was able to land this position after my undergrad. A little bit of background for those who don't know, my role within the startup is situated within the research team. So I worked alongside some of the smartest people, research scientists who were in charge of the machine learning algorithms that we were building, and product managers. I was also working externally with other teams like the product team, engineering team, sales team, customer success team. It was a B2B company in the logistics industry, and we provided a SaaS platform backed by AI for some of the biggest players in the logistics industry. All jobs have its up and downs, and I definitely feel like I'm at a position in my career now where I don't think there is the perfect job or a dream job. For my data scientist job, I actually had a lot more ups than downs. I had the full flexibility to work from home. I received 2 performance raises within 1 year, and even as the youngest person on the team, the only person with a bachelor degree actually on the team, everybody else had a master's, I was given equally amount of responsibilities and respect. I know this is becoming quite a long intro now, but I just want to make sure that I'm giving you as much context as possible around my particular situation and make sense of the reasons I'm going to talk about next. One of the questions that people asked me the most was probably, when did I know? For me, I actually had quite a distinct moment when I realized that, oh, I think I might have to quit. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I found myself sitting in the chair of my regular hairdressers. This other girl walked in who was also a customer, and she sat down and she started talking about the most bizarre and interesting story I've ever heard. And it's not just about, I think, the experience, it was also about the way she was telling the story that made all of us relive in the moment step by step with her. That was so engaging. And at that moment, I was like, I want to be an interesting person like her. And that was the moment that I realized, maybe sitting in front of my laptop every day wasn't it. That's not how I'm going to be an interesting person. Now I've identified my goal. I'm going to move towards that direction. Being in my current job doesn't help me achieve my goal. Just to give you a little bit more context, at that point in my life, work was everything to me. It was over consuming my identity. I was so proud of all the steps that I took to get to where I was that I felt like work was who I was. Even though I had hobbies, I was playing tennis, I was hanging out with my friends, and I volunteer at the shelter every weekend, I still felt like the person that wasn't who I want to be, if that makes sense. So being tied to a computer, it was weighing me down, and that's how I felt, and I didn't feel like I could continue doing that. I didn't want to be that person who all she talks about is work. One of the other main reasons I left was lack of impact. I think there are two aspects to this. One is the amount of impact that I'm making through work, and the other one is the amount of impact that I could potentially have through the social media work that I'm doing on the side, helping people break into data science. And in both cases, I was measuring my impact through how I felt, whether I was making a positive contribution to society, and direct or indirect feedback that I'm getting from the people that I'm helping. So let's talk about my work first. Because I worked on the research team, a lot of the ideas or projects actually get trashed and never pushed to market. Think about companies like maybe Google Brain or ChatGPT, where we're sure GPT-3 or GPT-4 is what everybody uses, what we see, but there are so many other projects before this that were never known to other people who are not working on it. And so many ideas were invested, but then eventually decided maybe it wasn't a good idea. It was a good idea to pivot, and then it was trashed. That was affecting me a lot in my role or in my sense of purpose and who I am. I felt a little stuck, constantly going through the loop of having this exciting new idea, propose the idea, do some experimental analysis on whether this is a good idea, and then go ahead with it, and then have the project gets trashed, or complete the project and then just have it being shelved. I know this is going to be a lot of what I'll be doing as entrepreneur as my next step, but in this case, I didn't feel like I had a good glimpse of the bigger picture, and I didn't have a lot of control over some of the decisions. So because of this, day in and day out, as I was working on project, I felt a bit defeated, and in a sense I didn't feel fulfillment or purpose in what I was doing. The other part was the feedback part. Sure, some of my work was trashed or was not in alignment with where the company direction was changing into, but some of the other projects that did end up going through, I felt like I needed a little bit more feedback. I wasn't working in a customer-facing role, which is perfectly normal for someone who works on the research team. I didn't receive a lot of direct feedback from customers, or in this case, indirect feedback through all of the other layers. How it was helping them in the grand scheme of things. Around the time I started my job was when I also started sharing my journey on social media, specifically on Instagram at first. I grew from 0 to 1,000 followers on Instagram in 5 months, but then from 1,000 followers to 50,000 followers, it was within a matter of 2 weeks. And so I experienced some success there, and I was sharing what it was like actually working on the job as a data scientist, how I got into the field, and how I could get other people into the field as well. I started offering my services to clients one-on-one, help them break into data at various points in their career. One person came to me who had 20 years of experience overall, 8 years of experience in data, and he wanted to let that promotion. I was pretty nervous going into that one, to be honest, because I have really bad imposter syndrome, and deep down I felt like, oh, why am I qualified to tell you what you have to do? Or it's the same way I feel like, who wants to watch my video, and who would want to listen to me talk? So that's just imposter syndrome talking. But after we got on the call and helping him throughout the process, I felt like, hey, I was actually really helpful, and I helped those people with their career that they wouldn't have had access to otherwise. And I reviewed like hundreds of resumes for people to get into data. The amount of positive feedback that I was getting was overwhelming, and I'm just so grateful. And it was kind of contrasting at the moment as well, when I was going through this project being trash cycle at work, whereas I'm getting overwhelming positive feedback from people who are helping private sessions, or just in general through the content I put out for free on Instagram and YouTube and Medium and LinkedIn. And this is something I like to call the impact to work ratio, the amount of impact that you have versus the amount of work that you put in. So obviously I was putting in more hours of work at work, whereas social media was just something that I do on the side, 20 hours, 10 hours a week. And I felt like I was making such a bigger impact to actual people and to people in society, people around me. That was a really empowering feeling. And a really, really quiet voice in my head is saying, look at what you can do now with 20 hours of your time a week. Imagine how much impact you can make if you do that full time. Beside impact, strive to be an interesting person, there's also this aspect of personal and professional growth. I heard from a podcast the other day something that really resonates with me is that in your 20s, you're not really looking for a perfect career. You're not looking to settle into your dream job, but rather you're looking to acquire a set of skills that define what your professional outlook will look like in the next 20, 30 years. And so it really has the emphasis on learning, continually upskilling, and just acquiring different skills, trying different things, which is a big theme for me as well, especially in data science. It's so correlated with technology and AI, and the speed of advancement of which those things are progressing is so fast that it requires you to constantly be learning on the job, and that's what I like. Being at the company for 2.5 years, I felt like my growth had slowed down a lot by the end. I'm really grateful for the opportunity, don't get me wrong. At the beginning, I was learning a lot of new tools. I was learning a lot of new things from people around me. But in a sense, I felt like when I progressed over time, the 2.5 years, I sort of outgrown my environment because of the relatively flat structure usually you get in a startup environment. There wasn't really a lot of vertical growth from where I was. So just to give a bit more context, I was reporting directly to the director or VP of data science. But because we were so small, there really wasn't like a middle step that I can jump into like you would at a fund company, like level 64 to 65 to 66. I didn't feel like I had a clear path going up when I asked for a trajectory, like what do I need to be able to move up or level up. I wasn't getting a clear roadmap, and that's another reason why I felt a little bit stuck in my position. I didn't really know where I could go from where I was. I touched on the misalignment with company goals briefly earlier. This was obviously another reason that was behind the decision. Priorities and direction constantly change in a startup depending on your financial situations, which clients you signed on, and where the market gap is, because maybe there is suddenly a new player in the market. And that's one of the reasons why you have to move fast and ship fast in this kind of environment. But also at the time, I was starting to see pattern in my work. When a new cycle starts, when I'm working on a new project again, that excitement, I'm usually a very positive person and I'm always the one cheering people on. I always like try new things. But at the start of that cycle, I actually found myself become cynical. I wasn't sure if this was going to be any different than the previous one. And I don't know if we're repeating the same things again, repeating the same pattern. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to be part of that. And that was a clear moment that I realized it was like a wake-up call for me that myself changed because of my job, and I'm changing for the worse. I didn't want to go in that direction. And that was a very, very clear sign for me that it was time for me to leave. Once I knew that I had to move on from a position that served me very, very well, that I'm very grateful for 2.5 years, the decision came down to whether I want to find another job in a different environment or start my own business and listen to that small voice in the back of my head. Finding another job in the market would be extremely difficult. We've had several rounds of layoffs. Even people with a lot of experience from big tech or across the board in technology are being laid off for no fault of their own. So the competition is really fierce, even for someone who has experience. But starting a business would be even harder for me because I don't feel like I've actively acquired those skill sets over the past 2 to 5 years. I was practicing data science, not how to make sound business decisions or judgment. And like my dad worked one job his entire life. I didn't come from a business family. I don't have anybody who I can look up to in this field and have those insights. All of my friends are happily employed at their 9 to 5. So as hard as looking for another job would be, I know I can do it because I've done it before. Starting my own business and really go full throttle on social media was going to be harder for me because of all the reasons that I talked about before. But I just had this voice in my head that was screaming so loud and quiet at the same time in the back of my head, very shy, that like I should do it. I should make the jump and step out of my comfort zone. At the time, I was reading a book called When to Jump by Mike Lewis. The book consists of a bunch of people who have done this before, who have quit their job to pursue their passion. If you're thinking about quitting your job, by the way, I highly recommend the book. It really helped me a lot. Reading that book and reading about other people's experiences made me feel like I was ready. I saved up enough money to live off of for an entire year, even if I'm not making a single dime on my side business. I tested the water. I have started a channel. I had a following of 70,000 people across my social media. So in a sense, that was my MVP. I tried something and it worked. It felt like in the back of my head, I have been preparing for this moment. Among other things, timing is very important also. I know realistically, if I go look for another job, I would want to stay there for a couple of years. I'm in my mid-20s now and in a committed relationship. And before I know it, I know it's going to be time to start a family. And then there are going to be other people you have to take care of and to feed. Right now, I can selfishly live life for myself. And I'm so grateful for that. I don't take it for granted any day. Because I don't have kids to raise or family to feed, there really isn't a better time to try this thing and take a risk, even if I lose everything. I go back to where I was 3 years ago. In your 20s, it's not too late to start over. At the end of the day, I decided to listen to my inner voice, start my own business. So what am I gonna do next? Is I am still going to consistently help you guys and post on social media, on Instagram, YouTube, Medium, and LinkedIn. I know this is a major pivot on my channel. I've been sharing a lot of day in the life videos of a data scientist, and I really enjoyed filming those kind of videos, but I don't plan to pivot from the data field. I'll continuously to share how you can break into data science and sharing more coding projects as well. I am also building my startup portfolio method where it has the potential to help millions of people to get started on your data science portfolio projects. I think having a project was really beneficial to me and one of the main reasons why I got hired right out of bachelor's degree. Among other people who have master's degrees, I was able to showcase my skills as opposed to telling people, hey, I can do this. They can see what I can do. And so I'm really passionate about helping others as well. It's not live yet, but if you want to be a beta tester or get notified when we launch, make sure you join the waitlist. So yeah, I'm really excited for what's to come. Let me know what type of content you guys would like to see more of. I also plan to do more like business related content, maybe data of what is like quitting your 9 to 5 and working for yourself full-time, the transition, if you guys want to see more, and if you guys want to see more data science content or coding tutorial content or portfolio project content. Let me know in the comment below and make sure you like this video. It's going to help me a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next video.